Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new week and a Monday edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So use our code NATION, NATION, in all caps. We got Tyler Yaremchuk joining us here in the next 5 or so minutes to talk about how hot the Edmonton Oilers are. Then we'll have Chris Kelleher, the assistant general manager of the Minnesota Wild, on at around 9:30 to catch up with him, a good friend of the show, making his first ever appearance, to talk about what is probably the best team in the NHL right now. I'm putting on a brave face, but underneath my face right now, I'm in so much pain and I'm so sad and I'm so afraid of what my co-host Colby Cohen might say to start today's show. So in fear, I will now kick it over to him. Colby, what's going on?
I don't think you should be in fear of what I'm going to say on the show. But I am excited for today's show. And I know everybody's probably expecting us to spend the first 10, 15 minutes and talk about what a dumpster fire and a hot mess the New York Rangers are. But to be honest, we've done that for the past probably 2 weeks. So that's just not where we're going to take our attention to start the show. But I am really excited to have Chris Kelleher on the show today. The way that we all sort of connected with him in Vegas was, one of my most favorite Jonny moments of all time, and how that all went down when we were at the draft this summer. So, we can kind of save that for when Chris comes on the show. But we do have something really special for you planned today. And when I say we, I actually just
he means himself.
I and Vic have something really special planned for Jonny during today's show. And I'll be honest with you, I started letting him know about this last night, very vaguely. And he's been upset, we'll say, this morning. Put himself in timeout to start the show. When my daughter came onto our pre-show meeting to say hi to everyone, he didn't want to say hi to my daughter. And my 2-year-old told him to stop being such a baby. So hang with us today, no matter what. And if you're somebody who starts with us and doesn't finish always, make sure you get back to when we have Chris Kelleher on later, because it will be really entertaining. It will be really
Chris.
So it'll be a good show. Like, we're all excited. Chris is excited. Vic's excited. I'm excited.
I'm not excited.
Johnny's not excited for good reason. But so Jonny, tell me, how are you doing though? Before we talk about the Edmonton Oilers, are you okay?
No. This sucks.
What's
wrong? Painful to watch. You know how it is. Listen, professionally, life is great. There's a lot to talk about, and I have the best job in the world of talking hockey, being able to go to Ranger games and watch them play and talk to them and figure out what's going on. Personally, as a fan, it's horrible. When your teams that you care about are not playing well, it affects your everyday life as a fan. And I think everyone in our chat can feel that when their teams are not playing well. When your team's playing good, it feels like the food tastes better, the drinks flow better, and everything in life is just better. And right now, it's the opposite. Everything in life just isn't as good because of this stretch over the past 2 weeks. And that's just my personal opinion. But I think our lovely chat and the loyal hockey fans that we have can feel that. And I'm trying to take my job hat off here and relate to everybody.
Well, I will tell you something that I have used and I've said before, Jonny. Although it's rainy in New York today, because it's raining here in Philadelphia, the sky and the sun and the light, it's still here. Okay. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay. You still get to wake up and you still get to talk about hockey and you still get to have a job. And so everything's going to be okay. And I'll tell you this, as much as you love the New York Rangers, they don't love you back. So don't have such heartbreak. All right. Yeah. But let's go west today. Yeah. All right. We did our power rankings last week. Like we try to do every few weeks, and neither of us had the Edmonton Oilers in our power rankings. And I remember specifically talking about how they were a tricky team for me because I felt like, and I said this, and you can go back and watch the show. I said, my expectation is the next power rankings that we do, the Edmonton Oilers will be in there.
Yeah.
Like, because they're coming, right? And you watch the way that they're playing, and you could just feel this team has sort of gotten over their normal early season hump and is back to playing Edmonton Oilers hockey. So, Johnny, why don't you get to the business side of things here and then bring in Tyler Yaremchuk, because there's just nobody who's more boots on the ground when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers than our very own Tyler Yaremchuk.
So before we bring on Tyler, I just want to give a quick shout to our lovely sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at proraso-usa.com with our promo code hockey15, in all caps hockey15. And Tyler, yeah, just rub it in, man. Just rub it in. I mean, it's got to be so much fun over there at Edmonton right now, because not only are you guys winning, you're also beating the league's top team. So that's got to feel extra good.
Yeah, this was coming into things. This was the stretch where it was like, man, this will probably define the Oilers to some extent, because it was 5 games against 5, maybe not all Stanley Cup contenders, but 5 legitimate playoff teams. And they go and they beat the Blues on Saturday, or last Saturday, and then they beat the Lightning, they beat the Wild, they beat the Golden Knights. And it's like, okay, this stretch of 5 games, which are 6 games, I guess you could say, with Florida and Boston still on tap this week. It was kind of like, if they could go 3-3, 4-2, you'd be thrilled with 4-2. And now you're sitting here going, man, could they sweep the whole thing? Like, they're starting to look like the Edmonton Oilers we saw last spring again. And it's not totally unexpected, but again, after some struggles early in the season, it's nice to see them just get back to that level and kind of ease some of the concerns that the fan base was having.
Well, and Tyler, I'll be honest with you, and you got on me a couple of times this year, and I said I was careful with my words. I didn't say they weren't a playoff team. I said they were not playing. They weren't showing me any remnants of a team that was going to pull themselves out of their funk. And I know you have become sort of used to the early season woes, and yes, I've seen it the last season and maybe even a little bit, previous, but I guess this is just a roller coaster that you're so used to riding, because you were so confident that this team would pull themselves out of it. And what kept me from feeling your confidence was the back end, and the way Nurse was playing early, and the way Bouchard was playing early. And then it almost felt like the Team Canada announcement becomes clear, even though it became clear a week or two before, but the minute Bouchard kind of found out he wasn't on the team, it's like, I don't know, he took a deep breath and he started playing much better. Stuart Skinner, he finds out he didn't make the team, he starts playing a little bit better. You could make the argument that Darnell Nurse, the way he played, he actually probably played himself into the conversation of the team, because he's really taken his game up a number of levels. But I wasn't confident that we would see what we're seeing now. And you told me I was an idiot, and sure, and lo and behold, you were right about your Edmonton Oilers.
Well, I mean, listen, there were a lot of Oilers fans too, and the people who are in my chat every day on Owen every day, who are sitting there being like, this isn't the same team as last year. They look different. And it's like, I think some amount of struggles early in the season should have maybe been a bit more predictable. Like, you go to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final, and I talked a little bit about this early in the season. I was like, is it going to be hard for these guys to, get up for these early season games after they lose the way they did in the playoffs? And I thought there was going to be a little bit of like, okay, they're going to look past a lot of games and be like, just get us back to the playoffs, get us back to playing that hockey. We want another crack at it. And I think it took them kind of a month to wake up. The reason why I wasn't all that concerned was, well, one, we saw the struggles last year. Like you said, I said they were 2-9-1 last year. This start was not nearly as bad as that one. And also, the reasons they were struggling weren't the reasons why some people projected maybe they would struggle. Like, you talked about the blue line. The reason people thought the blue line would be bad is because they looked at, Darnell Nurse coming off a bad season. They got rid of Ceci. They got rid of Desharnais. So they have Troy Stetcher, Travis Dermott, and Ty Amberson for their 2 and 3 slots on the right side. Well, when you look at the way those games were going, Stetcher wasn't a problem. Ty Emerson wasn't really a problem either. It was Bouchard and Ekholm who were really struggling. And it's like, okay, that's going to turn it around. And, even Calvin Pickard wasn't that much of a problem. It was Stuart Skinner who was more of the problem in net. And it was like, okay, look at what happened last year. He struggled early. Then he was a top 3 goalie in the NHL for a 2-3 month stretch in the middle of last year. And then you look at the offense and it was like, okay, Connor McDavid's even struggling right now, at least by his standards. He was out of the top 50 in scoring. And I kind of looked at all those things and it was like that combined with the fact they were 31st in the NHL in shooting percentage, like a team with that much skill is not going to sit 31st in the NHL in shooting percentage for that long. So it was like, the defensemen who are struggling, they're going to get better. Stuart Skinner, you kind of felt like he was due to go on a run. And then it was just luck. The shooting percentage had to turn around at some point. And we're seeing that 13 goals in the last 2 games. That'll correct the old shooting percentage.
Do you think all you needed for them to turn it around was just to play against the Rangers? Because that, to me, is what turned it all around after that game.
Yeah, I mean,
you look at the schedule, like that's really when this thing started rolling.
Yeah, and I do think like even earlier than that, they beat up on Ottawa 5-2 earlier that week, and it was a game that like 5-2 I think is flattering to the Ottawa Senators, and that's when the Oilers started to really play good hockey. Like they've lost a couple of times since then. They lost 5-3 to Minnesota. They lost 1-0 to Vegas. All the other games
they were the better
team
in that Vegas game, I thought.
And they were the better team in the Minnesota game too. Like the point I was making was it's now been 10 straight games where they've been the better team in every single game that they've played. So they're again back to looking like the Edmonton Oilers of old, and it's not exactly all that stunning.
Is there one moment you can pinpoint though where it really flipped?
That's a good question. Even though I kind of said they started playing better in that Ottawa game, they had that weird 5-day mini bye week after the Rangers win. And then they came out against Utah and were down 2-0 after the first period. And after the game, a bunch of the guys doing their post-game availabilities kind of said, like, we all looked at each other in that room, and not that they called each other out per se, but it was kind of like, they've all been through a lot of battles together now, and they're comfortable enough to sort of be honest in that locker room. And they said they as a group, we're not good enough right now. We need to be better. And they went on and scored, I think, 4 straight goals against Utah, go win the game, or 3 straight goals against Utah, go win the game in overtime. And then they don't really look back from there. So I think that turnaround, again, coming out of the bye week, they were just so sluggish in that first period down in Utah. And then they just flipped the switch and absolutely dominated them for 2 periods. Got a win with Calvin Pickard in net, who was unreal in that game. And I think that's really what jolted the confidence back into them.
Looking at the rest of the lineup, Tyler, I wasn't shocked when Stan Bowman claimed Kapanen on waivers. He's definitely had a history of grabbing guys with quote unquote a name that have maybe underperformed in other markets. He did it with Nylander in Chicago. I know he claimed Alec Regula on waivers not so long ago, who was one of his draft picks in Chicago. But the Kapanen move, and also, the depth of this team, like it kind of folds into my question. And offensively, you've got McDavid and Draisaitl producing at a high level. Hyman, I think he's up to about 8 or 9 goals the last time I looked. So he's starting to come on. Are you concerned with the lack of depth? Arvidsson, I don't know if you have an update or you have any inside information on what's going on with him, because that's kind of a weird one that has really not been talked about that much. And this is the time where you really need Arvidsson playing and getting used to his new setting. And, we always talk about how long it could take a guy to kind of fit in with a new team. And I'll throw Jeff Skinner in the mix as far as we're talking about that. So when you look at the depth, whether, it's Kapanen, like I mentioned, Skinner, even Podkolzin, like, do you have a concern offensively, or do you feel like these guys are going to find the right chemistry and find a way to start helping this team produce? Because you get into a playoff series, and Connor's going to draw a certain matchup. And if they throw him and Leon together, they're certainly going to draw that matchup. And then you do need a little secondary scoring.
I'm not worried about the offense at all, actually. Like, I actually think it's going to be fine, and it largely has been fine, especially when you compare it to what they've gotten in years past. Like, if you go back to last season, they had 10 guys finish with north of 10 goals on the season, but Nurse, Ekholm, Bouchard were all in that mix. So they only had 7 forwards hit double digits in goals last season. And you look at who's trending to not just hit double digits, but finish with, 15 plus this season. You got the usual guys, Nuge, McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl, but Podkolzin is trending to hit 10 goals. Even Kapanen, even though he's only been here for a couple of weeks. And then Skinner, 6 goals. Connor Brown has already passed last year's goal total with 5. Corey Perry's at 6. Like, they are getting depth contributions. And I think it's interesting. I mean, Arvidsson is a bit of a Band-Aid historically, so not exactly surprising that he's been out with a mystery injury for the last 5 weeks. He was day-to-day on November 13th, and now he's missed a month somehow. But Jeff Skinner's kind of the interesting talking point in Edmonton, because people sit and look at the $3.5 million price tag and the fact that, he's scored 30, 35 plus goals a lot of seasons in his career. And he was brought in here with some amount of an expectation that it was like, hey, he's going to ride shotgun with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, and he's scoring 30 this year. And I think if you adjust that expectation, or maybe you need to adjust that expectation to maybe appreciate what Jeff Skinner's brought to the lineup, because again, 6 goals in the first 30 games on the Oilers is good if you're not playing with 97 and 29, because you're not getting a ton of minutes, you're not getting a ton of power play time, all of that stuff. Oilers fans have been complaining about him, but what I've been kind of saying is we've been starved for a third line that could score goals in this city for a while. Like, the offense has always been the McDavid line, the Draisaitl line, or like you said, when the two of them are together. Jeff Skinner having 6 goals already in 30 games down on the third line, playing totally away from McDavid and Draisaitl, I would argue that's more valuable than if he had 10 goals playing next to Connor McDavid, if you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, the depth has been awesome. Skinner on the third line, Connor Brown and Corey Perry on the fourth line. They've found a way to get between the three of those guys 17 goals from their bottom 6. That's been massive.
Well, so let's just throw Darcy Sagan's question on the screen here, Vic. And the question reads, for those of you who are audio only, is ask Tyler what happens when Kane comes back. Look, Kane is always an X factor, right? Which guy are you getting? He's obviously a big, skilled, heavy forward that can impact a game for good or for bad. He's always going to have an impact on a hockey game. What are you hearing about his timetable? When or if he will come back? Is this going to be a Vegas Golden Knights? We'll see if for opening night of the playoffs, or even a Nikita Kucherov. We'll see if for opening night of the playoffs, which, hey, I got no problem with that. The rules are the rules. If you find a loophole, you find a loophole. But, how does he fit into the equation here?
That's really interesting. So, on the timeline, about a week ago, Chris Knobloch told the media, don't even ask about him for a month. We're going to have nothing on him for a month. So if there's no update for a month, and I heard the other day he's not even skating quite yet, January 10th we're looking at before there's another update. It'll probably take him a while to actually get going and rehab the thing. So I think we're looking at February.
He had the sports hernia surgery, correct?
I think he had a core muscle thing,
which is the sport. So the core muscle injury is the term that Dr. Myers in Philadelphia, actually, who is the doctor for this surgery, I got operated on him twice during my career. It's literally where everyone goes. You go into this guy's office, and it's like, if you're not a Hall of Fame athlete in your sport, your jersey is not on the wall. I laughed. I'm like, I'm not even going to offer, obviously, but they call it a core muscle injury, and they fix the tissue in your sort of lower abdomen. And then a lot of guys need to get a adductor release, where they kind of poke holes in your adductor and they kind of release all of the stress and the tension. I got to tell you, it's a different, it's a difficult surgery to come back from. And I always hear guys who are having it, and I hear their timeline, and I think it's completely unreasonable what they call on the timeline for that. And most guys who do come back quickly from that injury and that procedure done by Myers, they struggle for a while. So I think it's probably better to give him a few months rather than the like sometimes 8-week timeline that's provided by this doctor. So it is a difficult surgery to come back from and play at a high level.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like I know there were some Oilers fans who were like, why weren't they in on Cam Fowler? That's such a low price to pay. But the problem for the Oilers in their cap picture right now is if they were, and I don't think so.
I don't think it is either. Yeah.
But for the Oilers in their cap picture is if they're going to acquire someone right now who makes that kind of money, they need to be really damn sure that there is going to be no Evander Kane until the playoffs, because they won't be able to afford it without money going out the door. Edmonton needs to wait, let the cap space that they have accrue, and then they can make a big move closer to the deadline. Back to Kane, Vic, if you want to flash up the forward lines here for a second. The bigger question, too, like we talk about what do you do with the lineup when Kane's back? What do you do when Victor Arvidsson's back? Because Kasperi Kapanen's look good in that top six. Connor Brown has goals in back-to-back games now, I believe. You're not taking Corey Perry out. He's got 6 goals on the season, just as many as Nuge, almost as many as Hyman. Like, if you try to fit both Arvidsson and Kane into this lineup, you all of a sudden have to start making some really tough decisions, which again speaks to the fact that they're getting it's a good problem. Yeah. You want to have something. Like
here's the other thing, Tyler, and it's funny, like on a much smaller scale, I'm learning this. It's something that I've obviously seen, and I always laugh with general managers and people are like, oh, what are they going to do? They have 3 goalies or they have 9 defensemen, and they wait until 11:59 the day before they have to make a decision, because 99% of the time these things work themselves out. Somebody else gets injured. There's somebody goes on waiver. Like something happens. A guy doesn't play well for 4 or 5 games in a row. So you don't like, they're high class problems, right? Like you don't have to solve for something right now, because you might not have Evander Kane back for, if he's not skating yet, we're talking about a minimum of him being back. It would be 2 months minimum, right? And we're in mid-December. So all of a sudden, mid-January, mid-February, like that's a ways away, right? The cap starts kind of, getting bigger and bigger by the day, especially the way that they're operating right now. So not really a problem you have to solve for today.
Yeah, and that's fair too. The Arvidsson one will make it interesting because I don't think they want to take Kasperi Kapanen out of the lineup. But again, a bunch of those other wingers in the bottom 6 aren't scoring. The easy thing would be to take out Derek Ryan, but they don't really have a winger who has experience playing center. So it'll be a tough one when Arvidsson's back too. But again, good problems to have.
I wanted to rewind, though, to what you were talking about before, Tyler, about the depth scoring, because I don't know if you caught what Rick Tocchet said, which was, I'll read the quote, after the Canucks lost to Boston. We don't have the team to have 3 or 4 or 5 passengers. We just don't have it. Edmonton, they can have 4 or 5 guys sleeping. They have guys that can win the game for them. This is the full quote right here. I can read the full quote as well. Sometimes guys aren't going to have their A game. We understand that. Some guys were just not engaged. We don't have the team to have 3, 4, or 5 passengers. We just don't have it. Edmonton, they can have 4 or 5 guys sleeping. They have guys that can win the game for them. We are a team that needs everybody to play. That was the thing that was the most disheartening yesterday, was we had some guys that weren't ready to play. Do you feel that that's true about your Edmonton Oilers team?
I think that's interesting where Tocchet goes with that, because it's in a way calling out absolutely everybody on that Canucks team. That's not just like a damning thing about the depth players being like the depth guys aren't good enough and we can't afford that. You're saying the depth guys aren't good enough. Oh yeah. And we don't have superstars that can carry us. And
which
you have,
they do have like,
yeah.
That was a shot not only at Vancouver, Tyler, it was a shot at the Edmonton Oilers as well. Yeah. Like, I mean, maybe it wasn't a shot at McDavid and Draisaitl, but the other 45 guys it was a shot at.
Yeah, see, I felt it was more of like almost a compliment towards
McDavid. It's a compliment to the top guys, for sure.
Yeah. For the Canucks, I think it's sitting there and pointing the finger at Pettersson and Miller and those guys being like, hey, you are not on that level, boys. Like, again, they can't sit there and be carried by Elias Pettersson because he's way too wildly inconsistent. And so far this season, at least half the games, he doesn't even seem interested in playing. And JT Miller, I mean, he's back, but he hasn't looked like the old JT Miller. They've been easing him into things. Like, I don't know. I thought that was like weirdly a compliment for the Oilers, but then also a shot at like all 12 of his forwards. I don't really get it, but also I can understand the frustration there with guys like Pettersson and Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as McDavid and Draisaitl are just on their own level, and they can win a game any given night. And I took it as an insult to his own top guys. But I wouldn't look at that quote and say, like, Rick Tocchet is chirping the Oilers. That's not just how I interpreted it. But to bring another team into something about your own team, that's where I'm like, I don't know if that's necessary,
Rent free.
Well, Tyler, I know you've got to get jumping here in the next couple of minutes because you've got one of your 7,000 shows that you do every day here at Daily Faceoff and Oilers Nation and all the above. The last question I want to hit you with is a little more of a general look at the Western Conference. The Edmonton Oilers are starting to cruise and starting to look like a team that, to worry about, right? They've got McDavid, they've got Draisaitl, they're getting goaltending. They're going to make a move on defense. They have to do that. There's no doubt. But like, who scares you the most in the Western Conference? Because, look, we did our power rankings last week. We're having the assistant general manager from the Minnesota Wild on today. Johnny calls them the Minnesota.
Were you about to say
Wild.
Minnesota?
He thinks that they're just very, very mid.
Or go to soda now.
Winnipeg has been up and down after scorching the entire league to start the season. I still think Vegas is a real serious threat. I really do. I watch the way that they play, and now you got to think Colorado's going to get above average goaltending, and they're a real problem. So for you as an Edmonton guy, who scares you out of this group that you think gets in the way of Connor's ascension to try to win a Stanley Cup this year?
Well, I'll start with the Oilers. If you were to start them in a playoff series with any of those teams, they're the favorites and they're the deserved favorites, I think. Obviously that makes some amount of sense. They won the Western Conference last year, but I'll be honest, like Winnipeg and Minnesota don't really worry me all that much. Maybe it's because you wouldn't have to play them until the conference finals, but they don't really concern me. Dallas, we'll see what Dallas does at the deadline, because if they're going to spice things up and make a big move with that Sagan LTIR money, then they could get a lot more scarier. Edmonton has had trouble with Vegas in the playoffs in the past, so I will say Vegas does still worry me a little bit. Just the style that they play, the depth that they have. I would say if I'm putting Edmonton at number 1 in my Western Conference power rankings, which I know some people might laugh at because they're not even first in their division right now, but I really do think you're the top team till someone defeats you, and the Oilers won the West last year. So if I put Edmonton 1, I think Vegas is 2, and honestly, with that Blackwood deal and the way him and Wedgwood might work out for them, I think Colorado might be 3. Like, you look at the standings, they are nowhere close to how I would power rank those teams based on their chances of winning the Cup.
And listen, we don't use necessarily standings for power rankings. I mean, we definitely have different viewpoints, Johnny and I, on how we do that, and we probably need to come up with more of a standard for
Although
our
we just
power
keep it
rankings.
ourselves. It's just like what we are.
We just like both have such different views on it, which is like you said, Johnny, that's you and me. Like we
just makes for our show.
Exactly. But Tyler, look, we appreciate it. Hey, listen, it's nice to have you on the show and have a good Edmonton Oiler team to talk about, because that like the beginning of the season was so ugly. I mean, it was like hard to watch, and you were so even keeled about it. Like all the shots I was throwing your way, you were just like letting them roll right off your shoulders. And now look, you're probably feeling pretty good about that, because they certainly look like a good hockey team.
But even with that, if I can just add to that, Tyler, like, does the winning even feel as good just because of what you guys went through last year? Like, are you still as excited as you were last year, or are you still just that even keel guy no matter what happens?
I would say I'm staying like relatively even keel. Again, the sluggish start this year, it's still a little bit of like, okay, good, they're getting on a heater now and they're sorting things out. If they go on another crazy run of like whatever 12, 13, 14 wins in a row, I'll start to get a little bit fired up. But for right now, I think I'm staying even keel. Honestly, I kind of get that energy from the team as well. You don't see a lot of big goal celebrations from them or anything like that. Like, it just feels like every win is just they're kind of mentally checking another box, moving on to the next night.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But Tyler, we really appreciate your time this morning. You're the best, and hockey's better and the NHL is better when the Oilers are good. I think anyone would agree with that.
Yeah, and when Leon and Connor roll in the way they are, it's good. I told producer Vic I'd end with a go Bills as well. So go Bills.
Our next guest may not agree with that, Johnny. Just to throw that in there.
Well,
he might think the NHL's better when the Minnesota Wild are really good. He might have a little bit of a different point of view on that. So Tyler, you're the best. Catch Tyler today at noon on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, DFO Live, along with the 91 other shows he'll do for the Edmonton Oilers throughout the day. Tyler, I'll see you tomorrow, or maybe not, actually. We're still trying to figure out the schedule for tomorrow's Daily Faceoff Live, but I hope it's you that I see. So have a good day, Tyler.
Yeah, see you, boys. Thanks for having me on.
See you, Tyler. Great stuff. The Oilers are buzzing right now, but a team that's been buzzing all year long. The Minnesota Wild, I'm going to call them the Elite-esota Wild today. We'll come up with some kind of nickname for that. We got a friend of the show, first-time guest appearance on the show, Assistant General Manager Chris Kelleher, smiling already. I'm sure you're about to rub things in my face. But Chris,
I'm actually just laughing at your jerseys behind you.
I got to pretend that I played at least a high level of hockey a little bit. I'm a fraud, just like my team.
No.
Well, Chris, look, we appreciate it. We know your life is busy right now between being the assistant general manager of the Minnesota Wild, also overseeing player personnel for Team USA. So probably an extra busy season for you this year. But I do want to give our audience just like a little quick background here on how this interaction and how this kind of all came together. We're in Las Vegas. Yeah. We're at dinner. We're leaving dinner in Las Vegas. It's Johnny, myself, John Butchergross is with us, Frank's with us, and we're walking by, and Bill Guerin and Chris are sitting at the bar, waiting for their table, or they had already eaten dinner, But Chris says to Johnny, or somehow the conversation.
I just introduced myself. I introduced myself.
Johnny introduces himself, and right away Chris is like, "You're the guy, right? You're the guy. Go ahead, Johnny. You got to tell it a little bit."
I think we should let Chris tell it. I've told
Johnny. I want you to tell it.
So I said, "Hey, Johnny Lazarus, nice to meet you." And you're like, "I've heard your name before. Where have I heard you? You did a Minnesota Wild show, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like you listened to that?" And you're like, "Yeah, you called us the Mid-esota Wild. You called us Mid." And I was like, "Oh my God, you heard that?" I was like so embarrassed, like, shit, like you heard that? Yeah. And then I think you complimented it though a little bit at the time.
Right? I did, like, yeah. Because it was creative, and you were, I think at the time you were probably right,
but how things have turned
I didn't
around
like to
now.
hear it, yeah.
No, obviously.
Yeah, no, but the guys we're playing well now. So, obviously last night we didn't get the win, but I think if you told us at the beginning of the year we'd be where we are, we'd definitely take it. And I think, we have some injuries now, which everybody goes through, but the guys, like even last night against Vegas, who had a full lineup, we played hard, and it could have gone either way. So I think we're really, really pleased with where we're at and with the way the guys are playing.
Well, Chris, I've never seen a John Hines team that doesn't play really hard. I thought that was such a great hire for you guys to bring in. But look, I know that you watch our show and you're an avid fan of the show. We know that. But I want to play something for you from last week, because I got to tell you, I've spent the last couple of weeks on this show really propping up the Minnesota Wild, because I don't think enough people are talking about the fact of what your team is doing. And with all of the dead cap space that you guys have, I mean, it's actually crazy. But I just want to play this clip for you from last week of our show, because every 2 weeks we do a power rankings on Morning Cuppa Hockey. All right. And I put mine out, Johnny puts his out, and there's usually a little bit of discourse. And I just want to play this clip for you, if you don't mind, and then we can move into the show. So go ahead, Vic, fire up the clip.
Even though Minnesota has been playing the best and most consistent all year, they're not that scary to me still. Like I don't look at Minnesota and say like this is the complete team. If you listen, obviously this is but if you take away Kaprizov, if he plays against a team that shuts him down, what else they got right now? I know Marco Rossi's playing well. Missing Zuccarello has hurt them a bit.
You're forgetting Boldy. He's pretty good too.
Boldy's been good, but like I feel like that entire team runs through Kaprizov.
Yeah,
and Gustafson's been great in net. Don't get me wrong. but I think the other 4 teams I have on this list are much better complete teams.
Now I had them at number 1, and you're talking about what, like, Kirill Kaprizov plays for the Minnesota Wild. Is it your fault that you've got the best player in the National Hockey League right now? Is that your fault? I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, I think he made a good point where he said everything runs through Kirill, which it does, and every team tries to shut him down. And he's like, to me, first
He's
of
a
all, Johnny,
gamer.
I'm surprised you still don't have the Rangers in the top 5 somehow. But anyways,
they're team 33. They're not even in the 32.
No, I mean, you make some good points there, but it's amazing how some of the guys have stepped up. And
Yeah.
Kirill now is, I mean, every team tries to shut him down. He's just at another level right now. He's incredible, the things he does. Like last night he scored 2 goals and nobody even knew they went in. Like he does stuff every night where you're just amazed. And you know what? He's probably the hardest working guy on our team. He stays on the ice the longest. He drives everything for us. You're right in that point for sure. And he's just every night he's been unbelievable.
He's undoubtedly, in my mind, the MVP of the league right now. Like I will 100% say that. I don't think there's anyone else who's done more for their team than Kirill Kaprizov. And if you look at the actual award, like, you know, he might not have the most points in the NHL right now, but he is the heart and soul and I think the identity of that group right now. He is. And listen, I think part of me almost plays into the bit also of just being a Minnesota Wild hater, and I'll own that because it's fun. But I do think also that, you know, I've seen teams have regular season success and then the playoffs, sometimes that disappears, right? Like it's common. So until I see the Minnesota Wild do that, I think I'll judge them a little bit more harshly than the other teams that I've seen have playoff success. And that's just, you know, something that, you know, Colby says too, right? Like we know who teams are. And right now I still think we're trying to figure out who Minnesota really is because we're only a little over a quarter of the way into the season, right? But, you know, my question to you is, do you want this team to go through some more adversity, or has things been a little bit too easy this year for you guys?
Well, I think right now, I think right now we have some key injuries, and that's adversity. Everybody goes through it, you know, and we're finding a way to, you know, keep our heads above water. I don't think anything's been easy for us at all. You know, we're winning a lot of hockey games right now, but it's not been easy, you know. And I think now where we have, you know, with Joel Eriksson out, Middleton, Trennan hasn't played the last couple games, you know, so that's hard. You can't replace, you know, your top center, top 4 D-man. So that's adversity to me. And I'm sure we're going to hit a time here during the year where there's more adversity as far as wins and losses. You know, hopefully you don't too much. But, you know, I think right now there's some adversity and guys are playing hard. Like we played, you know, we had a bad game against Edmonton, which was probably the first of the year. Kind of had a stinker there, and then came back the next game and beat Philly 4-1 and played really well, played hard, played good last night against Vegas. Vegas had a full lineup. We were missing key guys. We played 11 forwards, 7D. Our young goalie Wallstead who played really well. You know, it could have gone either way, but the guys are playing hard. And I'll tell you what, Colby, I think you mentioned John Hines. He is an unbelievable coach. Like he is so detailed. The guys love playing for him. Guys buy into what he started from training camp on day one. And I really believe that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, I always say, and I'm interested to get your take on it. And I actually had sort of another question I wanted to ask you about, because I want to talk about the Yaremchuk trade and also how you guys handled the development of Marco Rossi. But before we go there, John Calipari on ESPN radio years ago, I was playing in Europe. So I was like, all I would do is listen to ESPN radio every day about college basketball and college football, just anything I could get my hands on that like made me feel like I was home. He said a coach can make a team like 15 to 20% better or 80% worse. And I think about some of the really good coaches that I played for, whether it was Coach Parker, who I know you played for as well, whether it was Quinney, whether it was Claude Julien, Bruce Cassidy, right on down the line, right? Some really, really good coaches. But do you agree with that at all? Like John Calipari's been a really successful coach for like a really long time, obviously in a different sport, but maybe the percentages are a little skewed depending on what sports you had. But just like overall, do you think there's any truth to that kind of statement?
Yeah, I do. And I think I think we're seeing it now. Like I think him having the team from day one in training camp was huge for us. He came in last year after we had to fire Dean Evison, who's a really good coach too. I love Dean, and I think he's doing a great job in Columbus, and nothing but great things to say about him. But I think John, day one in training camp, like he let the guys know, hey, this is going to be a hard training camp. That's what it's for. I'm telling you, it's going to pay off at some point. You're going to be like, okay, this is why we're doing this. And again, I think we're seeing the results now. And guys have just bought into kind of what he's all about and how he wants to play. There's a lot of non-negotiables with him as far as compete, effort, like that stuff. And even when you're injured and have guys out, key guys, I think if those things are still there, you have a chance to win. And I do think coaches can have that type of impact with the, I don't know about the percentages, like you said, but I definitely do think so. And I think we're seeing it right now.
Yeah, I just think it's such a fine line of making you. I feel like a coach can make a team a lot worse than what they can do. Like they the percentages, like we said, you can argue over that. But all right, so I kind of tease what I wanted to talk about with you next, and I know your role has been a lot of overseeing pro scouting, and I think pro scouting and kind of player personnel throughout your career. I mean, 18 years with Minnesota is quite a run, right? You've made it through quite a few changes in the front office, which kind of is rare to see. So it's a feather in your cap. But we talked a couple of weeks ago on our show, and we actually put this on social media about how brilliant of a move we thought the Yaremchuk trade was, and not only to trade for him, but to then bring him in and let him see what John Hines and the Minnesota Wild are all about before saying to him, look, we still need you to go work on your game, and there's still things you got to do. And then going further back, like I was working in Chicago when you guys were dealing with Marco Rossi's development and sending him back and making the team and then going back and working on your game. And so many teams would have just given up. He would have gone from prospect to suspect and probably been traded, right? Yeah. But you guys have this stick-to-itiveness with these guys, and it's paying off. Look how good Marco Rossi's been. And so is that sort of your organizational philosophy? I mean, does that come from Bill Guerin? Like who drives that?
Well, Billy definitely drives it because Billy, as you know, was drafted by Lou Lamoriello, who, has always been kind of a notorious for that, which, the game's changed a bit now. These kids are coming in and playing right away and getting paid right away. So it's hard. It's harder now to do that, have guys go down and play in the American League for, a couple years at least, and then come up. So that is harder, but I think you gotta be patient with these kids. Like, Marco, there was ups and downs and, conversations of like, is he going to get there? How, a lot of that, but that's with a lot of your prospects. But, when it's a first round pick and a guy who you hope is going to have a big impact on your organization, you got to be careful. And it's a lot of credit to Marco too. Like he stayed around last summer or the summer before when he kind of, last year was his rookie year. So he stayed around the summer before, trained with our trainers, skated with a bunch of our players for the whole summer. And he really, that's kind of where he took a step, like as far as his game and physically. But I think Billy definitely, the way he kind of went through it with Jersey. I remember there's a quick story on how he kind of, when he met Lou Lamoriello at the Hartford airport. Lou flew in on the private jet and signed Billy, and Billy got on the plane with him. And Billy thought he was going to New Jersey. Well, the the plane kind of veered over to Utica, dropped Billy off, and we went to New Jersey. And Billy was like, "Oh man!" So, but he definitely drives that. As far as he believes there's the right path, and if you're able to do it, sometimes you're not with the salary cap, and there's just a lot of stuff now. It's different, but and you mentioned David Yaremchuk. Like once we. You saw kind of how he played in Columbus. He was playing 8 minutes a night or 10 minutes a night. He really wasn't playing a lot of hockey, and he just turned 21. So really, he should have been a kid who would have been just over here this year, but he's been over here for 3 years now. So he's still a young kid who's growing into his body. We believe there's a lot of upside. And I think Billy said it, how, this is an investment. We don't need him right now. And we have to get his game back to what we think he can be. And I think the way we brought him in, had him around the big team, see how we practice, see how John Hines does things, meet the coaches, meet the staff. Like, you guys know how important that is. Like,
Yeah.
you get to know the equipment guy, the
So
medical guy.
important.
You feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So he was
Everything.
here for a week, 10 days. And now he's down playing in Iowa. And, I'm going to go see him tomorrow down there. And, he's getting big minutes. And, I think it's important. Like, it's hard. This game is so hard, and to rush defensemen, especially like Colby, Johnny, I don't know. What were you, a goalie?
I was a right
goalie.
wing. Right wing.
wing,
Am I that weird? Come on, give me a
Might as
little bit.
well have been a goalie.
No, I didn't know. No,
I
I'm
don't
just
drink
kidding.
like a goalie. Come on.
But
His brother was
defensemen
a
is-
goalie, so be careful what you say about goalies.
Yeah. Well, he's
All
weird.
right,
He went to
I can't win with
BC.
Chris.
Well, even weirder, right?
All right. Yeah. But I think with defensemen, it takes longer, and with bigger defensemen, it takes a little bit longer. So I think we're going to be very patient with David. I think there's a lot of upside there. He's a 6'4" right shot D who can skate and has some puck skills. So, we were very excited to get him, but we don't want to rush him, and we don't need him right now. So we're going to let him play, get his game back. At some point this year, we probably we'll see what he's got, and maybe give him a taste and see what happens if we need him. If not, he'd probably go through the Marco Rossi as far as try to keep him around here in the summer, train with our trainers, skate with our players, and hopefully takes a big step.
Chris, I do want to shift gears just for a quick second here and ask you something personal. And it's a new segment that we're trying to implement on this show. Obviously, we're called Morning Cup of Hockey, and we're trying to do like a cup of coffee segment here with guys who are very unique like yourself. And I'm not just kissing your ass because I trip the Wild all the time, but you're one of the more unique guys we've had in the show because you're a Massachusetts guy, right? Born and raised in Massachusetts, went to BU, won a national championship there, but you played one game in the NHL. And that one game you played was for your hometown Boston Bruins. And it's rare to find people in the world that have played only one singular game in the NHL. And I actually find that really cool. It's like something that you probably have an incredible memory of, and something that I'm sure you love talking about. But can you bring us through that one game? Like, if you knew it was only going to be that one game and just that whole experience, because I think it's something that is incredibly rare in the hockey world.
Yeah, no, I do have a great memory, and I'll try to keep it shorter.
You don't have to.
Just for the show and you guys. But so yeah, it was I was playing in Providence, and I remember getting a call. Bill Armstrong, who's the general manager now for Utah, was my coach at the time, and I think back then we probably just started to get the Nokia flip phones. So, it wasn't like you had your phone on you all the time, because all it was calls, and that was it. So, I think it was
2002,
Saturday.
right? 2002?
Yeah. March 16th, 2002. Yep. I know the date because it was actually my dad's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So my brothers never could get my dad a better birthday present than that ever. So I always won that. But he called like 3 or 4 times. It was a Saturday. I think it was an off day in Providence or whatever. So it was early, and the game in Boston was an afternoon game against the Red Wings, who were loaded at the time.
The 0-2 Red Wings are the best team of all time.
Oh man, I'm telling you,
for a defenseman, that's a lot of fun for your debut.
No. I mean, I'll get to it, but yeah. So he called. Finally, I answered the call. I called him back, and he said, "You got to go to Boston right now. You're going to play this afternoon against the Red Wings." And at first I was just like, "Oh, okay." And then I'm making the drive from Providence, and you start thinking like, "Oh boy." Call my parents, call my brothers. I said, "I don't know what I can do for tickets. I have no idea." I said, "So just try to get them, whatever." So everybody went, and everybody was there, which was awesome. So I get there, and the game I think was at 3, and I got there at like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to sit here." Like I'm really early, and nobody was around. The trainers, everybody's there, but no players. So Dennis Bonvie, who's a good friend of mine, I play with in the minors a lot. He was in Boston at the time playing. I said, "Can you come over to the rink?" I said, "Nobody's here. I don't know what." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be right over." So whatever. He came over. And then the guys start trickling in. Billy Guerin was on the team. Hal Gill, who is awesome and just talks and
Skills.
yeah. And then I remember Billy comes in, and he's like, I think it was Billy. Yeah, I think it was Billy. It was either Billy or Hal. And they were like, "Oh man, I've been nervous for this game for a long time. These guys are so good." I was like, thank you." So anyways, we get going and get out on the ice, and warm ups. You're like, "Oh, this is great." Family's around, everybody's, and then I start stretching, and I'm looking over, I see Fedorov, Yzerman, Hull,
Mhm.
Lidstrom, Zetterberg, Datsuk,
Sean Avery.
Thomas Holmstrom, Sean Avery. Yeah, like all these guys. I'm like, there's no way I could do this. There's no way I could play against these guys. And so my D partner was Sean O'Donnell. I think I played like 12 minutes or so. I'll never forget the one shift I got stuck in the D zone, like battling Thomas Holmstrom in front of the net.
Oh,
And when I rewatched the game later, Bill Clement was one of the announcers, and he's like, "Oh, this, he's making his debut, and looks like he's going to get a lot out of it on this shift. Like if he's trying to make a career out of it on this shift." It was like a 2.5-minute shift.
Mhm.
But anyways, we won 3-2. I think Byron Defoe was in that, and I mean, Boston had a good team at the time too. But the Red Wings with the names was unreal. So anyways, after the game, we win, and it was close to the deadline at the time. So I was trying to take a shower and sneak out of the locker room as quick as I could.
I would have sat there for 2 hours and soaked up every minute.
Well, I was hoping to stay.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, if they don't talk to me, they can't send me down."
exactly.
Yeah.
Just shut your phone off and get out of there.
Yeah. But then they finally got me in. Robbie Fatorik was the coach at the time, and he said, "Yeah, you got to go back to Providence and play tomorrow afternoon, Sunday."
Oh,
I was like, "Oh man, the worst." So, anyways, it was my dad's birthday. One game. Like if you could script a game you could play, and obviously I wanted to play more games, but now looking back, I'm kind of glad I played the one instead of like two.
Yeah. It's cooler.
Yeah. And it has a lot of, in Boston, the team I grew up watching, my dad's birthday against the Red Wings, who are a great team. And then some of my teammates, Billy, obviously, who I work for. And it was just incredible, like a dream come true. Like, Colby, like you grew up, and Johnny, you too, like you dreamt of playing the NHL. And, it's one game. I get it, but I played in the NHL. Like, it's only a certain amount of people can say that.
It's only about 80. It's only about 8,500 in the history of the world that can say that, which is
it's crazy.
Not a lot. Yeah.
When you hear that number, like you think it would be way more. And I know actually a guy I worked with, one of my first bosses, Blair McAsee. He's just a tremendous guy, and he played one game in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So
you got to connect us with him. We got to make a list of people that played one game.
Well, there's a guy I think who wrote a book. I'd have to find out, because I know Blair talked to him, and I think there's a guy who wrote a book. But there's a bunch of guys who played one game.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with the kind of the situation
Yeah.
of my one game. So
Well, nobody can ever take it away from you. You're part of that group. I don't have many either. But I know that number of like 8,500 or whatever that in that area. And like the minute someone wants to give me a hard time, I'm like, I'm one of 8,500 and out of millions and, millions of people.
Yeah.
So, it's a great honor. And it's funny, like when I started kind of looking up, your career, obviously, like I know you were part of the some of those unbelievable teams at BU. The story, your brother, you go to BU, then your brother goes to BC. I mean, there's a couple. The Tucks did it most recently.
That's right. Yeah.
With Alex
right.
and Luke. You don't see it very often. And you mentioned Armstrong, his son actually played at BU, then transferred to BC, which I mean, that is
mind blowing to me. I don't know how you could do that, but good for him.
It's a story for a different day. And your family has this sort of rich hockey history. I mean, your brother is the executive director at USA Hockey. And that's kind of the last thing I wanted to ask you about. You've got this great last name that is synonymous with the game of hockey, especially in Massachusetts. But you're right there on the executive team for the Four Nations Cup. And I would think the Olympics, your brother being the executive director at USA Hockey, how cool is that you guys now get to work together within USA Hockey, and you guys have a hand in overseeing and picking these teams? And like, this is a really exciting time for USA. I mean, you look at our roster, like we could have made a B team that would have also challenged to win, which we have never had that before. And our defense and our goaltending and like right through the group, and the other teams look incredible too. Like, don't get me wrong, but how cool is it to be involved now with USA Hockey and to get to do it, with your brother, Pat?
Yeah. It's obviously, it's very special to be involved and to be a part of it. I know growing up when I got to play for USA and World Juniors or Select 16, whatever it may have been, it's just a different honor. It's incredible. And to be now with this group of guys on the management team with Billy, Tommy Fitzgerald, Chris Drury, Billy Zito, John Van Beesbrook, all these guys, it's been incredible.
That's a lot of big names.
Yeah. But great guys. And like every time we have a call or a meeting or whatever, I feel like I'm learning something new or different from them. And it's great. We all have different personalities and different takes on guys, and but we all get along great, and it's been a great thing. And as far as my brother, like he's been awesome to work with, and he reminds me that he is the boss, right? Like he's the big boss,
executive director.
He lets it be known. No, and I think for him, it's I think it's really cool to have me be on that. Billy named me to that, so it wasn't like he was kind of forced into it because he's my brother or anything like that.
Right.
So I think that's how it's really special for him as well. He wouldn't probably tell me that yet, but I think he will at some point. But it's special for me too. Like, I get to see him more. I get to talk to him more, and just see how he handles his business. Obviously I'm biased, but I think he does a great job with kind of his role. And USA Hockey is growing. Obviously, Colby, like you said, we could, going through the teams and the players, it's just so deep. It's never been this deep. So the hard part was leaving guys off who could have been there, but that's a good thing too for USA Hockey, right? Like, I mean, the names that didn't get there yet. They're younger guys. They're going to get there at some point. There's other guys that are still coming. Look at Logan Cooley, a guy who, just kind of came out of nowhere really for us as a group, is this Alex Vlasic in Chicago.
He's going to be on the Olympic team.
He's
going to be on the Olympic team. I'll bet on that right now.
I mean, but it's awesome to see guys playing their ways into the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what we loved. Like, that's what it's like, how do you leave this guy off? Like,
I
he's
know.
just, like Zach Werenski, like how could you leave him off with the season?
Yeah.
I mean, he was always kind of there, right? Like, he was one of the guys that we, from the start, but then you're like, well, there's no chance this guy can't be on
Yeah.
it. So
Well-
it's been a great process, and I think it's going to be awesome. Like I recently watched the '96 World Cup documentary.
I've
Anyways.
never seen it. I gotta watch it. Yeah, I know.
That was like, I know 1980, the Miracle, like I was 5 years old, so I don't really remember it. And that's the biggest, USA hockey event ever. But this, like, I remember I was a sophomore in college, and it was the best hockey ever. Like, you got to watch it. It's Anatomy of an Upset, maybe. But anyways, it's on YouTube. It's incredible. The hockey there was like prison rules, but it was incredible. And I just think best on best. Like watching Austin Matthews go against Connor McDavid. Like, it's going to be incredible, and I think I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, well, Colby, I don't even know if you know this, but speaking of four nations, Chicklets talked about it on their show last week that you told Zach Werenski, I always struggle saying his last name, in person, that he made the team. The only guy on the team who found out in person that he made it. Colby, I don't know
Great
if you hear that story.
Yeah, it's a great
if
story.
You want to tell
Chris,
that,
if you want to talk about it,
hear that from you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was it was great. So Billy and I went towards the end of, I think it was the week before we were finalizing the team and naming it. So Billy and I went out and watched a couple guys, a few guys that week. So the last game we went to was in Columbus, to watch Werenski. And, after we went out for, dinner and some drinks. And so we were sitting at the bar, and the bar's kind of clearing out. And so in come the Blue Jackets. I guess the bartender had told us that the Blue Jackets rented a room in the back. So they all start coming in. A lot of the guys know Billy, just, he's Billy. So everybody knows him, and he's a great guy, and guys want to come say hi. So guys start coming over saying hi. And then they all go back, and, we asked one of the waiters, can you ask Zach and his fiance to come out here? Because Billy and I talked, and I said, this might be the only chance to tell a guy in person. And Billy's like, yeah, that'd be great. So I'm like, I just think it'd be really cool and to do it in person. Everything else was a phone call for him. Like, he called all the guys on Thanksgiving and kind of let them know. And, that, and like he said that was incredible. But I think the Werenski thing in person was better. So Zach comes back with his fiance, and Billy says to them, he goes, oh, I forgot my wallet. You can, see if you guys pick up the tab. And his fiance goes, yeah, if he makes Team USA. So Billy's like, okay, then you're picking up the tab. And she was so excited. And he was like, his reaction, like, it means so much to these guys. It was like, oh man, I've been thinking about this. I've been wondering about this, like, the whole season.
Yeah.
And like, when you hear that, and I've talked to other guys who got named, and it was like, it means so much to them. But to do it in person and to see his reaction and his fiance's reaction was really special. And it was just, even when we named the team and they finally put it out there, it was kind of like it was a really exciting, like, even knowing what it already was and how we had done it. But when it was out there, it was kind of like, oh, this is exciting. But that was a really cool thing, and something I'll always remember. But it means so much to these guys.
Well, to our audience, because we have a live chat during our show, and I could just echo it. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's U17, U18, U20 world champ. There's something about putting on your country sweater, and I'd feel really, really confident that it doesn't matter what country it is. I can only speak on my own experience of getting to do USA, and I know you got to do US things, early in your career like I did. There's nothing like it. I mean, I remember walking into the locker room in Ann Arbor the first time for a game when we had our sweaters at the national team, and you put it on and you just get the chills. I mean, it's uncontrollable. It's Christmas morning. It takes you back to your like sort of adolescent emotion that you don't necessarily get after your first couple of, you get that feeling in your first NHL game, and then it's like, okay, I have a job to do. Like, this is my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredible, and these stories are amazing. And look, we're excited to see this team play. And I think the whole hockey world is really excited to see this team play.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, just the names and the guys, like they're all first line players, stars for their teams, and every one of them was like, I'll do whatever, I'll play wherever. Like they are so excited. I just think for them to play, and a lot of these guys, it's different now. They all played together at the national program, or they know each other.
Yeah. Social media has changed.
Yeah.
The connection.
Yeah,
Everybody's
true.
connected now. Everybody.
Yeah,
No more
exactly.
mysteries at all.
Right. When you go and you show up in Lake Placid and you get a roommate from Minnesota and who you don't know, now it's definitely way different. But I think, it's going to be incredible hockey. Like, look at the other rosters. Like, everybody, whether it's us or Canada, whoever they say is the favorite, it's they got to play. Sweden D is like, look at Sweden's D goalies.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
two in goal. Like,
look at Finland down the middle.
Yeah,
Barkov,
Hintz. It's going to be
Aho,
amazing.
like
and then the Olympics next year, it's going to be something. It's going to be outrageous. Like, Chris, I can't imagine you want to answer this question, but we'll ask you.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
It's harmless. It's a harmless question.
Johnny was going to ask you. This got to be great.
We have people in the chat asking who's going to be Team USA's captain. I think we have a lot of Toronto fans in the chat asking if it's going to be Matthews.
Yeah,
I would
Chris
say
in trouble.
I went on the record saying I didn't think it would be Matthews. I thought it would be Tkachuk. Was kind of one of my guesses. I can't imagine you're looking to break any news this morning, are you?
No, absolutely not.
All right.
No, I think I think that's something we're gonna talk about. We're gonna have a big group with the management and the coaches and see how they feel. And obviously there's so many guys. We have, I think, Matthews wears a C. Who else do we have as captains?
Hughes is a captain.
Hughes. I think we have
an assistant. Eichel's.
We have a ton of guys who wear letters. Yeah. So Larkin's a captain. Nelson wears an A. Kreider wears an A. There's just so many. So I think it's we haven't got there yet. It is something we're planning to have a call and kind of go through it and include the coaches and see what they're thinking as well. So we have a lot of great options. So I think that's going to be another exciting thing is to kind of name the leadership group but it'll be tough too. Like there's just, like I said, there's so many guys that you could put in there, whether it's the C or the A, whatever. They're all leaders and they're all great players and whoever it will be, I think everybody will just kind of be, fall right in.
Can I make a social media suggestion?
Okay.
When you guys name the captain, you should do like a reenactment of Miracle, like Austin Matthews, Phoenix, Arizona.
That would be awesome.
That'd be funny, right? That'd be funny.
So let Johnny handle the marketing for you guys,
yeah,
Chris.
I'm the creative guy on this show. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I figured you had to be something.
Exactly.
You gotta be a little bit stupid to be creative, though, right?
We certainly don't we don't have him on here for his opinions. It's really the creativity. But Chris, you've been so generous with your time today. Johnny, put your hand down. We got to let this man go do it. One of his multiple jobs. The last thing I'm going to say to you is, I know you've been getting my emails the last weeks about the alumni, the group, and Dan Ronan will be expecting a check at some point here before the new year. We got to get this collective up and running. We got to make sure we protect Coach Parker's legacy because the landscape in college hockey is changing so much. And like as alum, we got to stand up here and make sure that we give Jay, who I know is your teammate, Joe, who is my teammate, we got to give them the tools that they need to continue to make sure we're in the Frozen Four and we're competing every year. So it doesn't have to be a big check, but we're expecting a check for sure from you. I'm putting it live on the air here.
Well, for sure. No, I agree with you. It's Yeah, college hockey has definitely changed. Whether it's for the better or not, I don't know that.
We'll find out.
But yeah, we'll find out. It's kind of like the Wild West right now, I think. But yeah, no, I agree with you, and I know the emails, and it's yeah. I mean, BU's they need to stay where they're at. So I know some of the other schools probably have a little more money and can. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know what to really think yet, but what do you think, Johnny?
What do I think? I don't know how to be
Yeah.
you guy. I don't care.
No, I mean, but
I mean,
you're
college hockey in
UMass guy,
general.
college hockey
Huh?
in general. Like
What
the
about
whole new, like, what do you think of this whole new,
landscape?
the new rules,
Well, I think, I've said it before, it kills guys like me, right? Like I wasn't a highly touted recruit. I had to play in the NOL till I was 20 years old to play D1. So, for kids like me, I feel bad for them that, their chances of playing D1 now shrinks.
I agree.
But, I think for the overall product, I think it's great, right? You're going to get better players playing college hockey. And I think there'll be more of a direct path now into the NHL, right? Like now I think people will know more about the Canadian junior prospects if they come play Division One. And I think in order to grow the popularity of hockey, I've said it for 2 years now, I think it starts with college, because you look at the NBA, the NFL, all the fans, they're aware of who these guys are when they're drafted because college football and college basketball are so popular. So if we make college hockey more popular, when a kid that goes 8th overall that comes out of BU is known by fans, like I think that makes the NHL that much more popular.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good take, and I hope
I
that's
say some smart stuff.
I hope that's where it goes. No,
Yeah.
that was really good.
Optimistic.
We're expecting that.
No, I wasn't. No, knowing you, I wasn't expecting. No, that was really good, and I agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I hope that's where it goes. And I do think college hockey's in a great place as far as the talent they've had over the last few years, and it's growing. I think there's a lot more interest in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great development path for guys. So
Yeah.
I hope it continues to be great. And I love college hockey. I loved playing at BU. I loved playing for Jack Parker, and that's what I grew up. That was my dream growing up, was to play in the bean pot. It wasn't. I never thought I could play in the NHL or play professional hockey, really.
Yeah.
It was kind of. I remember going to watch Tony Amonte at BU and all these guys, and that's what I dreamt, of growing up. So I hope these kids. I hope it's still. Kids like that, like me, who grew up wanting to do that path, still have that chance and opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll never
look,
forget mine. Yeah, I was in 5th grade. I was playing for the Long Island Edge, AA hockey. We were in Boston, and our dads took us to a BC game. Nathan Gerby, I think Brian Boyle was on that team.
Yeah,
I didn't even know what
Good
college hockey was, and I was in 5th
Good
grade.
team.
good teams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say this, just so the audience knows, if they're not familiar, you were an All-American defenseman at BU. So you had quite a run of time. You were there for a lot of wins and some really good years. And my hope, Chris, is that the USHL and the CHL can find a way to work together and make one number one league. And my other hope, and I might be maybe taking a page out of Johnny's book of optimism, and sunshine and rainbows is what I normally call them. I hope this means some of these bigger programs, whether it's USC, whether it's UNLV, whether it's Georgia that just built a brand new
Texas
2,500 seat arena. Like, I hope somebody will step up, write a big check, and kickstart their Division I program. So we'll be able to take all the CHL kids, and it won't affect guys in the North American League like Johnny. Look, I coach in the North American League. I'm an assistant coach in New Jersey for a North American League team this year. And I don't want to see our guys get hurt. We have good hockey players. Like, they're good. They're hard workers. It's their life. It's what they do. A lot of them are committed, and a lot of them are scared to death that their commitments are going to fall through. And I don't blame them. And so I hope there's a world here where, whether it's USA Hockey and Hockey Canada, or it's the NHL, somebody hits the gavel and says, let's all realize that if we don't work together, we're going to pull each other apart. And that's my optimistic hope. And I I hope that's what happens.
Yeah, me too. I think they, I'm sure they're trying to work together.
Yeah.
And I hope it's, I really hope it's for the greater good, because I think hockey's, it meant so much to me and still does, and to you guys as well, and a lot of people. And, I want to see those kids who are playing, in New Jersey and the Knoll still have that dream, and still have that, and not have it kind of not,
Not their
killed by
chances.
by because of this agreement or whatever may happen with the teams and the players. But I think they'll figure it all out. I think it'd be incredible to have like an SEC.
That'd be sick.
It'd be
that'd be
unbelievable.
sick.
Like
If I
they
could
play
have played
club
college
hockey now, and it's
at the
crazy.
University of Texas, that would have been like the sickest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, I still would have gone to BU, but
Yeah.
Well, I grew up on Long Island. We didn't have a college team to like root for. I didn't grow up like rooting for any college.
No, right? Yeah.
And it was the same for me in Philly. I guess probably now it would be Penn State, but Quinny and Coach Parker and Bavo, again, 3 people that were just so influential in my life, and still to this day are. It's like they got me up there, and they changed my life forever. I mean, like you.
Oh yeah.
Like
for sure.
My team, I don't have an NHL team. Yes, I played a little bit, but my team is BU. Like that is my team, and that's who I help support. So,
Chris, you have 2 more minutes, because I know Colby's going to try to kick you off here, but I got 1 more question or 2 more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, well, this one's from the chat, because I saw them buzzing a little bit earlier, and Minnesota. Listen, I'm not around that team. They haven't been to New York yet, so I don't know what the vibes are right now. But our chat was like talking and asking if the vibes are just that much better in the room this year than maybe previous years, because you watch on TV, on TNT, Middleton obviously is one of the brighter personalities the past couple weeks. And Marc-Andre Fleury obviously is one of them who's well known. Is that room just incredibly fun and contagious right now?
Yeah, it is. We have a lot of characters in there, but a lot of character. There's guys who are
good.
Middleton is. I mean, you guys see his interview on TNT there.
2x4.
So like the next day they had like shirts made up that guys wear, the t-shirts in the locker room, and we just have so many guys. Zuccarello, and Kirill's he's a great kid. Like he's fun. He's engaging.
Zuccarello's quote the other day, Michael Russo, who I know is listening, because Russo texted me, Eichel should be captain with a smiley face.
I keep seeing I get it on my iPad here, his text, so he's texting me too.
But he tweeted out that Zuccarello quote of like, when I go to the front of the net, I got hit in the head and I got hit in the nuts, so that's why I'm just going to stay in the perimeter. Like that. It was
so good. But there's a lot of guys who are characters, but they have a good time. Marc-Andre Fleury is he is so invaluable to our locker room. He is the ultimate pro. Just a great human being. Guys look up to him, but guys are also afraid he's going to pull a prank on them. He's still that guy. So
he should be.
Yeah, I know. But it's a great room. A lot of great guys. They have fun. They keep it loose, and it helps when you're winning games too, for sure.
And my last question, am I going to be okay? What's Chris saying?
You might be the next guy out the door. No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying, but I hope they can turn it around.
The media members are safe though.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
I would think so.
I don't think you have a lot of trade value, Johnny. So I think you're gonna be A-okay. But hey, look, we
I'll come to Minnesota if they'll welcome me.
No. What do you welcome you? All you do is take shots at the Minnesota Wild.
But I've said no city deserves more success than Minnesota, because every sport, all 4, they're good, and then they just never get to that next level. Like the Minnesota fans. They deserve it, man. They do. I mean,
no, that's fair. That is definitely a fair thing, and we got to get over.
I offended Chris. He left.
Well, listen, you have a history of that, and
that's sad. He's the best.
Oh, listen, that was an amazing conversation. He's. I want everybody to sort of take note of something. Like, obviously, we played the clip. And like you can see a guy like there's a reason Chris has been working for one team for 18 years. There's a reason he's survived multiple GM changes. Like you see his personality. He's one of the guys. And it's actually sort of a topic that I had sort of bullet pointed out on, that I wanted to bring up with him. Because here's something that, and I might have said this on our show before, but I know it's something that I talk about, right? Like a lot of people in high management positions in the National Hockey League or coaching positions, they forget what it's like when they were the player. They quickly forget. And I've actually said this about Don Sweeney before. Like Don Sweeney had a long NHL career, and it's the way he acts towards players, the way he conversations that I had with him through my career, I'd be like, God, like you don't remember what it's like to be the player at all.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Guerin and clearly Chris, who nobody rolled out a red carpet for and gave him 1,000 games. Like these guys remember what it's like, the daily grind, the daily struggle, the ups and the downs. Like they're not, they are not egomaniacs, like Sharma just said.
Yeah,
like
Sharma,
they're not. These are guys that are they check their ego at the door, which is
Chris
why
is back,
players,
by the way. If you want to just say goodbye to him,
we'll bring him in and just say, we'll thank him for his time because he was so generous with his time today.
We're just complimenting you.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we were complimenting you and the way you guys operate and how, like I say this about Bill Guerin, he acts like he remembers what it's like when he was a player. The way he treats people, he doesn't. I think a lot of guys get to that position and they forget what it's like to be on the other side of the conversations. And just the way you guys dealt with David Yaremchuk, it shows the world of hockey that you guys remember what it's like to be players, because there's a human element in the way that you treat these guys to set them up for success. And we were talking about how Bill Guerin, clearly top down, that's how you guys operate. And that's probably one of the reasons you guys have had success.
I think he definitely operates that way. He remembers what it was like as a player, and he's engaging with these guys all the time, like the players. Like he'll give them shots, he'll make fun of it, he'll have laughs with them, and
amazing.
And he's just and the guys love him. Like he's he's just, his personality does not change. It doesn't matter, whatever role he's in. Like he has that ability to just always be himself. He can be professional when he needs to. He can make it light when he needs to. He's a great guy. And he, just to work for him is amazing. He lets you do your stuff. But to your point, Colby, I think deep down, he is a player. Like he remembers what that's like, and it's about the players. So he does a great job with that.
Just don't play him any of my clips or any of my shows or anything that I do.
No. I'm going to tell him actually Colby was great, and you were still,
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Look, when I put you guys number one in the power rankings, I had no idea you were coming on. That I wasn't made aware of that until this weekend. So it just timed out really perfectly the way Johnny did it. Hey, listen, I watched them. I think they're a good team. I think you don't give enough credit to some of their players like Ryan Hartman and like Boldy. Like, I don't think you give these guys enough credit for how big they are, because you know what? They're not in a Northeast market. And we know those markets, they get more attention. They're not Toronto and they're not in the Northeast. So I don't think you realize how good some of these guys are, Johnny, which is why I had them where I did.
Chris throws out the chirps too. Mario Ferraro always talks about it. We had a fun night after that dinner, and Chris chirping the Sharks to Mario. It was hilarious.
The Sharks are playing pretty good right now.
Buddy, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Mike Greer is a great friend. I went to high school with him, and he was a year ahead of me in high school and BU. So he's a great human being, a great guy. And the Sharks are playing pretty well right now, so I'm happy for them. And I still laugh when I see Mario on TV with no teeth, and he's and I heard Middleton was on Spit and Chicklets, and he mentioned he's quite a character too. So we did have a fun night, and he was a super good guy, and seems like a great human being. He's a really good player. But I
Yeah,
mean, from
yes.
UMass, anyways.
All right. Well, look,
Yeah.
now we're gonna let you go here, but
Okay.
we're very excited to see, and we're gonna ask you to come back on after
Our
you
chat,
guys.
our chat loves you.
Once you guys get the handcuffs of the 14 or 15 million in dead cap space,
Yeah.
and you get your star signed, and then you can take the rest. We can't wait to see what you do with it. Once you do, though, we're going to ask you to come back on so we can
Absolutely.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Once you guys are freed up from the from
Or
from
Four
the
Nations, Colby. Four
you
Nations.
know?
We can
Yeah,
talk.
whatever.
Yeah.
I had a great time with you guys. Thank you. And yeah, I would come back on anytime for sure.
We appreciate it.
Be
Good luck the
careful with
rest
that.
of the season, and go make sure you get a couple wins there with the USA boys, because that's a big deal here. So, Chris, we appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time.
No, thanks, guys. I had a great time, and you guys do a great job. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
All right, see you guys.
Okay. Awesome stuff. Happy he came on and we can give him a proper send off. What an awesome guy, though. Seriously, I hope the chat really loved that, because that's someone who's a very high up in an organization that's the best in the league right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yep.
Those types of guys don't really want to do this stuff, right? Like, I think that's also something that's really cool, that you have someone who appreciates the stuff that we do and appreciates our chat, right? Like, this is what kind of keeps the game going.
Well, and he gives any like, he acts like one of the guys. Like, he's not afraid to give shit about clips. He's not afraid to take it and dish it out. Like, you feel like you're talking to one of your former teammates or something like that. You know what I mean? So no.
So the clip was the thing that you were making me all nervous about.
You get all the credit for texting Chris and bringing him on. The clip, yes, that was it. That's why I told you. I was just getting in your head.
Yeah, I was freaking out.
I like to mess with it. And look, you both took it in stride.
I didn't remember what I said. So when you played the clip, I was like, oh God, what did I say?
You had to know it was coming, though. You had to know what was coming with that. I mean, listen, we get held accountable by our chat every week. Like, Jeremiah is the first guy to hold my feet to the fire always. So we all hold each other accountable. The chat holds us accountable. We hold each other accountable. And we just spent almost an hour and a half without talking about the dumpster fire New York Rangers, which is, a miracle. That was that's great. So I don't know, Johnny, like, do you want to get into some of these other topics that we had, our notes? I know we wanted to talk about Chicago a little bit today.
Vic might kill us, though, because I'm pretty sure he has Leafs morning take coming up here.
That sounds like a Vic problem, though. That doesn't sound like a problem for you or I, does it? I mean, Vic has been on vacation for 6 months. Are we really overly concerned? Are we really overly concerned? Like, why don't we just let him suffer a little bit? Let's talk about a couple of these other topics that we had. Look, we don't need to get into the Sabres. We talked about their issues with Jeff Marek last week. They continue to struggle. It's so ugly there in Buffalo. We'll save the New York Rangers for this week when we actually have something new to talk about. Like, there's nothing new. Everybody still has their job.
They scratched Kaka, but that's like really...
It's like the dumbest thing ever. Like, I hate when they go after low-hanging fruit like that. By the way, my wife brought my son down here in his little bouncy thing because they had to go to soccer. She took Sloan to soccer today. Okay. So Shane is actually right next to me. He's sleeping. If he does get a little, if he starts to wake up and get a little noisy, I might have to pick him up. But we wanted to talk about Chicago a little bit. And they called up Frank Nazar, a guy you and I followed quite closely in college. Anders Sorensen has taken over that team. And from talking to Pat and talking to some of the other players in Chicago, they're excited about the energy that Anders Sorensen has. Is like Luke Richardson was like a very sort of even-keeled guy. I think Anders has a lot more piss and vinegar in him behind the bench. He's a lot more chatty. He's a lot more vocal. And it looks to me like the players in Chicago are responding. And then you bring Nazar up. That's when fans in Chicago can get excited, when you start to see these young studs getting opportunities in the NHL.
Well, opportunities that they're also ready for, right? Like Nazar has been lighting it up in the AHL. You don't want to bring a guy up who's not ready for it and have him
for sure.
Right. So I think, that's something that we have talked about with Buffalo, where maybe they have guys who aren't ready for it yet. But Chicago, and obviously the familiarity between Sorensen and Nazar helps. But that's also Nazar being called up and playing for a guy that he knows trusts him already.
100%.
Right? So like that's such a big confidence boost for a young guy. And I didn't watch a lot of that game yesterday. I tuned in for the third period, where the Islanders had a late collapse there. But I thought the Islanders played solid from what I was watching. The third period, they looked like the better team for the most part, but couldn't find a way to get that go-ahead goal late. What?
Our pal Ariel must just be in I mean, they're like it's getting ugly. But how about Chris bringing up Alex Vlasic?
Yeah. You didn't text him to do that?
I'm gonna probably text. I might have to text Vlas and tell him like the head of player personnel.
Praise, there's praise.
Because man, like he gave them a lot to think about. He really did. And again, you watched the game last night. I mean, he is a star for that Blackhawk team. Vic is saying soft tampering. He really, I mean, he is a difference maker for that group. And so look, I'm really excited. First Swedish coach ever. He was in Rockford when I was in Chicago. So him and I would kind of, Anders and I would talk quite frequently just to see when players would get called up. He would let me know how they were playing, how they were doing. Really detailed guy, Anders. Like, I think Kyle Davidson's hope is that Anders is the guy. Like, I think he's hoping that they show enough progress that next season he loses that interim tag at some point. Well, maybe it's this season or this summer, but that he becomes their head coach, because I think there's a lot of promise. And you look at the way he's developed some of those guys down in Rockford. That's important during a rebuild, right? And you can sort of spark the big group. Look at Spencer Carberry. He's a young head coach who comes into an NHL room, has to kind of find his way for a season. And now look at the Caps. I mean, they're one of the most dangerous, consistent teams in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and MYR Marine just said, is Vlasic Colby's laugh? I think it's gotten to the point where he might be. He might be your laugh.
I don't know.
A crazy take about it, but like, he could be your Lafreniere.
Yeah, I mean,
you saw something in him that is now catching on, which is what happened to me essentially last year. It caught on after, and now it's looking like it's not going to catch on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, Lafreniere will be okay. He's obviously not. He's not playing consistent right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, you still see spurts, but you also, like, that whole team is playing like shit. So
one thing with the Sabres, I know we didn't want to talk about them, but I do want to read the Lindy Ruff quote, which might have been from yesterday or 2 days ago. So they lost their 10th straight game, and Lindy Ruff, the head coach, says this: "I'm almost lost for words. Obviously, it's on me to solve this. This is the toughest solve I've been around. It's on me to get these guys all in the right place and win a hockey game. Nobody else, just me." And that's like such a tough spot. And here comes Shaner.
Yep. Shane's making his debut.
Tough spot to be in for Lindy Ruff, man. And I kind of feel for Lindy, right? Where he was given this team and kind of one last kick at the can. And this is probably his last go at it. And this is how it's going. It's got to be tough. And I don't know what else he could say. I think he said the right thing, right? Like, he doesn't have the answer, and it's his job to find the answer.
Yeah.
That's kind of pure honesty from a head coach.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's dire in Buffalo right now, Johnny. It's ugly, and it's getting uglier. And I think that's the situation with a couple of teams.
Yeah.
Let's get to Betway here.
We'll wrap here. You look busy over there.
Yeah. I don't know how much time I'm going to have of quiet here for the next couple of minutes. So let's get to, Bet365. Who's a big time sponsor for us, but I'm not a big gambler, so I don't, I forget. But go ahead, Johnny.
I am. Yep. So let's get into Bet365 tonight, and there aren't a lot of NHL games this evening. I believe it was 3 games when I looked. Let me double check that as I'm talking here. But the game that we're gonna watch is the Edmonton Oilers against the Florida Panthers. The Panthers have been shut out in back-to-back games on their Western Canada road trip. Edmonton, obviously, like we talked about with Tyler Yaremchuk, which honestly feels like a day ago already that Tyler was on here, is buzzing right now. So we're going with the Oilers money line. It's -135 on Bet365. So there's not too much juice on it. And we're hoping the Panthers can keep struggling. So, Oilers money line, Draisaitl, McDavid on fire, getting good goaltending from Skinner, and they're on home ice. So We're going with Edmonton money line, and there is only 3 games tonight. It's Washington, Dallas, which will be a great game to start the night off at 8 o'clock. Then Florida and Edmonton at 8:30, and Colorado, Vancouver at 10:30. So pretty well balanced 3 games as far as scheduling goes. Should be a good night of hockey, and I'm excited for it. But I'll definitely be tuned into this Edmonton Florida game.
Well, look, great job getting Chris Kelleher to come on the show today. We appreciate Tyler Yaremchuk as always. DFO live at noon today, as always. The Sheet at 3 p.m.
I'll be on it, I think,
with Jeff Merrick. Oh, you're making your Sheet debut?
Yeah.
I wonder what that segment's going to be about.
Yeah. He did a thing on his show last week. Johnny does journalism. Did you hear
I
that?
know. I did. Yeah, I did see that. We were going at it in his chat. So make sure you subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Make sure you're liking our episode. We know we went really long today, but we appreciate you guys rolling with us. We'll give you guys some more updates this week about our schedule through the holidays, just so you guys know when we'll be with you and when we won't. And otherwise, we appreciate you as always. Sorry for the noise. And we will see everybody back here 9 a.m. tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.